Last season, we did a program about government secrecy in Canada. We were and are of the opinion that this country needs a Freedom of Information Act allowing anybody reasonable access to government information. That program provoked a lot of mail, including a letter from a Toronto filmmaker named Larry Ewashen. Larry was having a problem. Why do you suppose the RCMP is withholding information that's 53 years old about the death of a man?
Perhaps they have something to hide. Perhaps they have something to protect.
Yeah, but we're talking about, even if that were so, we're talking about history, not current events. Why would they hide?
It's a mystery.
Larry is attempting to make a half-hour documentary film of the history of the Doukhobors, a controversial religious sect of Russian origin who settled in Canada. His film is being financed by several Canadian government organizations. The Ontario Arts Council gave him several $1,000s. He had a large money award from the Ministry of Culture and Recreation in the form of a Winterio grant. On a federal level, the Canada Council contributed several $1,000s, and so did the Secretary of State. Incredibly, despite all this government support, the RCMP is blocking him by refusing to give out information which he absolutely needs to complete his film. He needs historical details on the 1924 death of a great Doukhobor leader by the name of Peter Verigin.
Peter Verigin had a sudden and violent death in 1924, in which a train carriage he was riding in suddenly exploded. There were different theories as to what the nature of the explosion was. One person suggested that actually it just happened to be a gas lamp or something like that. But you have to realize that the explosion was violent enough to have ripped off the top of the railroad carriage. And as near as they can ascertain, there was a bomb placed behind his seat, which indicates that he would be the intended victim. Now, this case occurred in 1924, and as I was researching the incident, I turned to the local RCMP detachment to find information on the explosion. I was referred to the Nelson Special D Squad, which means Doukhobor Squad. The Nelson detachment referred me to the RCMP of British Columbia. The result of that was a letter indicating that the case was still under investigation, and therefore no information from the file could be given out.
Your request was forwarded to the Department of the Attorney General for direction. The Attorney General has declined to release the contents of our file. Not only no information, but no explanation why not. So, 53 years after the incident, the file is still being kept closed?
As far as I can tell, yes.
Did you get any action at all from the RCMP?
No action at all. Well, I got one interesting little bit of action. Shortly after I left British Columbia, the RCMP started investigating me.
They did a security check on you?
I presume that that's what it was.
Did you ever contact the RCMP and ask why they were doing a security check on you?
No. Frankly, I don't give a damn.
If the RCMP considers the case still open, surely that implies they believe some kind of foul play was involved. What are their grounds for believing this? What do they know that they aren't telling? Larry Ewashen wasn't the only one to encounter this problem. In any library in Canada, you can find this book, hundreds of pages of carefully researched text and photos about the Doukhobors. It's written by a Doukhobor, Kuzma Tarasov. He tried to get the same information as did Larry from the RCMP for his book.
In 1959, as I was writing my manuscript, I was very much interested in the 1924 train explosion, which took the life of 9 people, including Peter V. Verigin, the Doukhobor leader at that time. The information was crucial to me because there had been many theories as to the cause of it. Was it deliberate? Was it suicide? Or was it an accident? I went to the RCMP office in Victoria, and they wrote back, "We regret to inform you that we are unable to comply with your request for information dealing with the Verigin incident in 1924 due to public policy. The investigation was conducted by the British Columbia Provincial Police. However, it has not been successfully concluded."
2 polite, scholarly requests for material, now more than 50 years old. Material which we imagine must surely be gathering dust somewhere in the vaults of the RCMP offices in Victoria, British Columbia. try to think about that figure for a moment. 50 years. Visualize how long ago that was. We're looking at a time span of half a century. We're talking about history. Is it reasonable for the RCMP to keep information secret for so long a time? We don't think it's reasonable. So, on behalf of Kuzma Tarasov and Larry Ewashen, we visited the RCMP offices in Victoria and asked for an explanation. One concern Mr. Ewashen had was that when he asked for the information, not only was he denied it, but also a security check was done on him.
By the members of the RCMP?
That's correct.
Well, again, that would probably be normal to, if someone has an interest in a file such as that. It was quite a case back when it occurred, and still has some.
My gosh,
yeah,
you would, I wonder would we go around checking every historian for checking every historical incident? It's history now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think that any inquiries made by the force would be other than to see that he was a bona fide journalist or person that was going to put together a documentary. That's all.
Doesn't it seem a little absurd that after 50 years a file would be kept confidential? After so long, who could be hurt by release of that file?
Well, you never know, what names are mentioned in a file or anything like that.
It's interesting that documents from World War I are all accessible. Most of the documents of World War II are all now accessible. And yet we're treating Peter Verigin's death in 1924 as more secretive than both world wars.
Well, as I say, the file is in Nelson. We haven't seen it yet. The decision was made by at that time, back, I think it was in December of '76, by the department. The only thing I can say, Robert, we had another look at it, and I spoke to the commanding officer, Deputy Commissioner Brzezowski, and he called the Attorney General's department and had another discussion with them on this. And the decision is now, again, we'll have a close look at the file, and more than likely there'll be some things that possibly can be released, such as you mentioned, photographs. Of course, if there's something in there that might be injurious to some innocent person, or that would be kept. But as I say, we're going to have a look at it again with the department, and if there's something in there that could be made available, it will.
Could you get back to us then on that?
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Last week, Ombudsman received this letter from the Attorney General of British Columbia. It says, in part, "Some would say that the information on this file is so old that it no longer needs to be protected. However, people knowledgeable about the current Doukhobor situation are well aware that this appears always to be a timely subject, and one which has the potential to disrupt the relative peace in the community." In other words, the Peter Verigin file will remain under lock and key. How can the facts about a 50-year-old incident cause the disruption of peace today? Does someone have something to hide? We need a Freedom of Information Act.